What is up, folks? How's it going? This is Watch from MW Technology, and today we're going to be talking about some of the best budget-friendly steering wheel options available for the PC and most of your gaming consoles. Now, over the past several years, we've covered a lot of different steering wheels, from top brands such as Fanatec that deliver some of the best consumer racing wheels out there on the planet, to more mid-range models from Thrustmaster and Logitech. But let's say you don't have thousands of dollars to shell out on a Fanatec setup, or even a couple of $100s to get yourself a G920 or a T300 RS. Let's say you only have about $100 to spend. Are there any good steering wheel options for that price point? And in this video, we're going to be taking a look at 4 different wheels to answer that exact question. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, we do have to mention our sponsor, Skillshare, that made this content possible. Now, if you don't know already, Skillshare is one of the biggest online learning communities out there, with a wide range of topics ranging from personal growth management as well as business and creative endeavors. Skillshare is an excellent way to level up your existing skills, get inspired, or even learn something new. With thousands of existing classes as well as new premium classes being added each week to the site, there's always something to discover that's perfectly suited towards your needs and interests. For me personally, I'm always interested in optimizing my workflow from a creativity standpoint, as well as learning a new skill in a new medium. And in that regard, I've really enjoyed Thomas Frank's course on productivity for creatives, where you build a workflow that's based around a professional mindset, optimize your physical and digital workspaces. There's also some interesting discussion on how inspiration can be treated like a muscle, where you train it in order to get better. Another fun course that I enjoyed quite a bit was on smartphone photography from Dale McManus, where he goes through the specific skill sets and general settings that you're going to need in order to take some of the best stills possible on a smartphone. He specifically goes through the settings to get the best iPhone shots possible, but many of the fundamental principles will apply to any general smartphone. Now, if you're interested in checking out these classes or anything else on Skillshare, if you go down in the description down below and click on the link, the first 1,000 subscribers will get access to Skillshare Premium for 1 month. We want to thank Skillshare so much for sponsoring this content. Now, coming back to our budget-friendly steering wheels, as you can see, we have 4 different options. One is the Thrustmaster T80, another is the Hori Racing Wheel Apex, officially licensed by PlayStation, and the other 2 are PXN wheels. Now, the order that we're going to discuss each wheel is from worst to best. So the first one is going to be my least favorite, which is going to be the PXN V3B/V3II. It's going to be probably the cheapest steering wheel that you're going to find out in the used and new market, typically well under $100 to $90. And it does have some interesting quirks. It has a built-in sequential knob shifter on the side, as well as paddle shifters. Everything is made out of plastic. Everything has a fairly toy-like build quality and consistency to it. The steering wheel angle range is about 180 degrees. It is a very lightweight at just around 6.5 pounds. Now, like all the wheels on this list, the compatibility options are very well widespread, from full PC to current and previous generation consoles. So that means you'll have no problem in hooking this up to any PC with a USB Type-A connection, or any modern generation consoles such as PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo Switch included. Now, you have 2 primary mounting options. One is a suction cup method, where you have a series of fairly large suction cups, and if you have the right surface, will stick on to a desk or table-like surface and have little to no movements, although it's not as reliable as actually having a clamp. Now, it does utilize a U-clamp design, where it bolts on to the bottom portion of a desk or table and locks on to the top portion of the wheel. Clamping down the wheel is definitely going to be a lot more secure, but for whatever reason, if you don't have access to the bottom portion of your desk or table, you do have those suction cups as a mounting alternative. Now, the pedalboard on most PXN wheels are pretty much the same, regardless of the make, based on my experience. And they're also very similar on the Hori wheel as well, where you basically have 2 pedals, 1 brake and accelerator, with the same tension spring. So there's no progression in the brake. You do, however, have a flip out extension to the pedalboard that will add some security as well as grip to the pedalboard, which is definitely needed, considering the fact that the pedalboard is very lightweight due to its all plastic construction and cheap design. Now, I did all my testing using Project Cars and Dirt 4 on the PC since I'm very familiar with the games in terms of how they should feel on a decent steering wheel from a tracking perspective. And using the PXN V3 wheel on the Xbox One configuration actually worked fairly well. It eliminated most of the dead zones, and the steering wheel also has onboard sensitivity adjustments from a low, medium, and high. And on the high settings, it improved the overall precision and tracking performance of the steering angle. It's definitely not as reliable and as precise as a more higher end steering wheel or some of the other wheels that we're going to talk about on our list, but it's definitely not bad, and it beats using a regular thumbstick controller. Now, it is important to note that this wheel utilizes two input modes, an X and a D mode. The X mode is designed for more modern gaming titles, supposedly. The D mode for more legacy titles. I didn't find it made a huge difference on PC based on my testing, but perhaps those two modes will make more of a difference on the Xbox or PlayStation, depending upon what game you're playing. Now, even though this is a cheaper steering wheel, you do actually have a dual force feedback motor built inside over here. It gives you a rudimentary rumbling sensation given on how the game is programmed for road feel as well as impacts. The torque on the wheel is fairly static, where it doesn't really change depending on what car you're using or what steering angle you're using on high-speed corners. It's definitely not going to give you the same level of immersion and force feedback as what you're going to find on the mid-range models from Logitech and Thrustmaster, but definitely not bad for the price point. Now, moving on, let's talk about the PXN V900. Pretty much fundamentally is exactly the same as the V3B, with the same overall plasticky build quality, the same mounting options with suction cups, as well as that clamp undermount design. You also have the same dual motor force feedback system and the same pedal board. The key difference is the rotation range. This is a 270 to 900 degree wheel, optimized for truck simulators or any game that utilizes a greater range of steering rotation. Furthermore, you do, however, lose the sequential knob shifter found on the V3, but you still have the paddle shifters included on the wheel. And PXN actually has a variant called the V9, which has kind of everything in it. A 900 degree steering wheel, a 3 pedal board design with a clutch included, as well as a side H pattern shifter. Definitely an interesting option if you want a more complete manual driving experience, but the price point is a little bit higher, from $180 to $200. Now let's move on to the Hori Racing Wheel Apex. Now, as we mentioned earlier before, this is officially licensed by PlayStation. They actually have a more modern PlayStation 5 oriented design, but it has pretty much the same fundamental features as this PlayStation 4 model that also has full compatibility with the PS5 and indeed the PC. Now, you can find these in Walmart and many other of the big box store, readily available for under $100. And there's a lot of great things about this wheel. The build quality is mostly plastic, but it's a little bit better put together, and the fit and finish is less toy-like than the PXN wheels we encountered. On top of that, it has a nice rubberized grip, a larger 28 centimeter diameter wheel, which definitely feels a little bit more life-size. The mounting options are a little bit more secure with actual metal parts in the clamp itself, making it a little bit more durable and resilient to tight clamping options, especially great for a ultra low budget sim racing setup. The controller layout is very PlayStation centric. I do like the fact that it has programmable R1 and R2 buttons directly where your thumbs should be. Very easy access for those. The wheel also has built-in large paddle shifters that give you a nice tactile feedback when you initiate an up or down shift. The range of motion on the wheel is 180 to 270 degrees, perfect for most sim racing, but if you're interested in truck, construction, or farm driving simulators, that 270 degrees might be a limiting factor for some. And as mentioned earlier in this video, the Hori pedal board is pretty much the same as our PXN pedal board design, where you have two pedals, brake and accelerator, with the exact same tension on the spring, and a flip out extension piece, added security and grip with the all plastic design. Now, the driving experience of the Racing Wheel Apex by Hori is actually very similar to what we encountered with the PXN, both in terms of the force feedback system being fairly rudimentary and the overall tracking performance of the steering angle being fairly consistent with those budget-friendly models from PXN as well. Nothing really standout, and definitely similar to wheels within this price point. And honestly, the only real advantage from this wheel compared to the PXN is the build quality is a little bit higher. The button and the fit and finish is just a little bit better. And if you're going to pay the same amount, might as well get the superior product from that perspective. Now, last but not least, I want to talk about my favorite budget-oriented steering wheel, and that has to be the Thrustmaster T80 Ferrari F88 GTB edition. This wheel is officially licensed by Ferrari and has a replica version of the 488 wheel in 8/10 scale, has a 28 centimeter diameter similar to what we found with the Hori, but unlike the other wheels we've talked about, this doesn't feel like a plastic toy, rather a semi-serious wheel that you actually want to do some racing on. The wheel itself is textured by a rubber cladding that provides a decent level of grip, as well as 11 action buttons, a full D-pad, as well as 2 large size all metal sequential paddle shifters. In addition to that, you also have the best pedal board combination that you're going to find in this price point, where the pedal board is still made out of plastic, but a little bit more heftier, heavier, as well as the fact that the brake pedal actually has some progression towards it and a little bit more tension than what you would encounter with the accelerator, something we haven't encountered in other budget-oriented pedal boards. This obviously is very important, especially when you want to simulate a real driving experience. Compatibility-wise, this T80 is specifically for the PC and PlayStation consoles, including PS4 and PS5. There are variants of this wheel from Thrustmaster that will also work with the Xbox consoles, but not specifically this one. Mounting options are fairly conventional with a standard clamp design for mounting underneath a desk or table surface. You can also mount the wheel directly on a custom rig using the available holes on the underside of the steering wheel base. Beyond that, thanks to the assortment of accessories available from Thrustmaster, you can actually add a H-pattern shifter as well as a 3-pedal pedal board down the road if you want to upgrade your racing setup. Now, the reason why the T80 is my favorite budget-oriented wheel is the fact that it actually tracks and drives very similar to the T300 RS and T150 from a controllability standpoint, where you can adjust dead zone sensitivity, and the overall tracking experience is very accurate and reliable, similar to what you're going to find with those mid-range racing wheels. The rotation angle is rated at 240 degrees. Again, not the widest for truck simulators, but perfectly fine for racing applications. Now, one of my favorite features of the T80 is regarding its bungee cord system, which basically simulates the heaviness that you're going to feel when turning a steering wheel. It is automatically recentering. It's linear in terms of nature. So when you turn it, you get that kind of same heaviness throughout its rotation range, which definitely adds a level of realism. Unfortunately, it can't be adjusted in-game since it's not controlled by a motor or any kind of dynamic system. It's an analog system nonetheless, but definitely does the job well for the price point. Now, unfortunately, one of the biggest downsides of the T80 is the fact that it has no force feedback system, no motors for rumbling. It's absolutely dead when it comes to any kind of vibration or force feedback. That could be definitely a big turnoff for some users out there, but for me personally, I think the overall controllability aspect of the wheel and the feel of the bungee cord system and the overall pedal board combination, fit and finish, overall serious nature of the wheel definitely makes up for that lack of force feedback. Now, the price point on the T80 is around $120 to $130, depending upon where you're getting it and things like that. Check out the description down below for the latest pricing details. But I think at that kind of price point of just around $100 to $130, it's really hard to go wrong, especially considering all of the positive aspects we mentioned earlier. But besides that, guys, that's really it. Definitely love to hear your thoughts on what steering wheel you're using right now. Do you think it's even worth it at $100 price point? Or are you better off with just using your standard controller for most of your driving games and then perhaps saving down the road for a more mid-range steering wheel model? Definitely love to know what you guys think. Please give us a thumbs up if you haven't done so already. Subscribe to the channel and make sure you have push notifications turned on our videos, so click that bell. And if you're interested in Skillshare, check out the description down below. Big thanks to you guys for all your support, and we'll see you real soon in the next one. Take care.